The second segment is why do Australian Republicans ignore the American model? What is really extraordinary is that our founders were most influenced by the American model. The only area where they resisted the American model was in relation to what we call responsible government or the Westminster system. But in so many respects, they took the American model, the Senate, the very idea of federation, even the reserve powers, which we might come to later. And they adopted those and incorporated those. Is it not curious, John? Is it not curious, and can you explain why, in their rush for a republic, the Australian Republicans in no way even suggest anything like the American model, although it's the most successful, notwithstanding what's happening at the moment. It's the most successful republic in history. This republic from independence, in a very short period of time, less than 150 years, from a group of colonies of the United Kingdom, suddenly became, within a very short period of time, the most dominant economic power in the world, which was demonstrated in the First World War. Their intervention was crucial to break the stalemate between the Western and the Central powers. Why is it that Australian Republicans ignore that?
That would be a good question for them. But I will take have a go at it. I don't know for sure. Let me just put it at that. But I think, that there are certain things about the American system that do not appeal. And I think that the Crown is so popular. Obviously, your survey has shown that, your recent survey, that I think to propose something along the American lines, I think would be a failure. By the way, we are talking about the Constitution of Australia and the Constitution of America and kind of the differences, but many people don't know this, but the very first Constitution of America was a complete failure. It was written in 1777, just after the Declaration of Independence, and it gave the states enormous power, but there was no power to tax on a national level. There was no power to guide foreign policy. All the foreign policy was done at a state level by 13 different states. And there was, finally, I think, breaking the straw that broke the camel's back on that one was there was an insurrection over taxes, I think about 10 years later, 87 or 10 years later. And in 1787, I think it was, they called for a constitutional convention because that was a Articles of Confederation is what it was called. And it was a complete failure. And so, but I think what's interesting about the Australian Constitution is that obviously the current Constitution that was written at the Constitutional Convention in America in 1787 was an evolution of the one that failed, because there's still a great emphasis on the states' rights and the individual rights and so on. And I think, in a way, the Australian Constitution that came around 100 years later, a little more than 100 years later, is an evolution and an improvement upon the American Constitution. So that doesn't necessarily answer your question about why the Republicans don't propose the American model. And but I think that it's interesting that they don't. I think we should ask them.
You're right. Our founders did think they were improving the institutions. They thought they were improving the Senate, and they thought they were improving, who knows why, the High Court. But they didn't, I don't think. They didn't succeed in those, and they failed in one particular, or two particular aspects, which we'll come to